Here comes Sims. Pedaling into the paint, leaning and hitting a 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana. And Minnesota wants a timeout. Caitlin Clark knows it.
Here comes Sims, pedaling into the paint, leaning and hitting. A 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana. And just like that, the Minnesota Lynx are calling timeout, stunned by what they're witnessing. Caitlin Clark sits on the bench in street clothes, watching her teammates do the impossible. But what Kelsey Mitchell said in that locker room afterward, those 4 simple words had her teammates buzzing and sent shockwaves.
I know a lot of people will talk about Nafisa not playing, but I think they're really good without her. You know, they're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard wise. We know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx, and so I think going into the playoffs
through the entire WNBA, this wasn't just a win. This was a statement that rewrote everything we thought we knew about the Indiana Fever. Let me paint you the picture of what seemed impossible just weeks ago. The Indiana Fever were missing not 1, not 2, but 5 key rotation players. Caitlin Clark, the face
playoffs. It was big for us because, being able to know, guarding Courtney Williams, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance. And if they are the standard, we get to see where we are.
The league sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, their sharpshooting veteran, out. Sydney Colson, Khloe Bby, Arie McDonald, all watching from the sidelines. This was a team that had lost 4 of their previous 5 games. Their playoff dreams seemingly evaporating before our eyes.
Fever done with the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah.
You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. Let's go to the playoffs with some momentum, baby.
Fans were asking the brutal question, would Indiana even have enough healthy bodies to field a competitive roster? The whispers were getting louder. The doubt was creeping in like poison. This was supposed to be the season where everything clicked for Indiana, where Clark's rookie magic would lift a franchise that hadn't seen a winning record since 2015. Instead, the injury bug had torn through their roster.
One of the things that I've been impressed with these guys since even the offseason, really, the ones that I was able to work out with in the offseason, is how hard they work. There's a work ethic and there's a work style. And to approach everything in the same way, to be so energetic, enthusiastic, and dedicated every day. And I felt that way in training camp too. There weren't any days where I had to bring that out of them. So I think it's the nature of the women that we brought into this organization to continue to just bust their butts. And
tornado through a trailer park. The promise of greatness was dissolving in real time, and everyone could see it happening. But here's where this story takes a turn that nobody saw coming. Instead of folding under the pressure, instead of accepting their fate, the Indiana Fever looked adversity dead in the eye and said, "Not today." Coach Stephanie White gathered her remaining players and delivered a message that would become their rallying cry.
How many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. And, these are things that you have to go through. I often say there's no substitute for experience, and the experience that these guys have had to have to continue to reinvent, to have to continue to find different ways to get back up and to play through some different struggles is not just paying us dividends this season, but as far as what it's doing for our culture, it's going to pay dividends for many.
Be where your feet are. It sounds simple, almost cliche, but those words carried the weight of transformation. This wasn't just about basketball philosophy. This was about rewiring the entire mindset of a franchise. White was forcing her players to stop mourning who wasn't on the court and start celebrating who was available. Every possession mattered. Every role mattered. Every player had to believe they could be the difference between winning and losing. The experience of fighting through this chaos wasn't just building character for one season. It was...
I love y'all!
laying the foundation for a championship culture that would pay dividends for years to come. And then came that game against Minnesota, the moment when theory met reality, when all that internal work had to translate into results on the biggest stage. Indiana stormed out with a ferocity that caught everyone off guard. 10-0. Just like that. The Lynx, a playoff caliber team with championship aspirations, were stunned into an early timeout. This wasn't survival mode.
Only 8 teams have ever done that. 7 of them went on to win the title. As Boston gets free and lays it in.
She will be on my first team.
Boston in the paint, sneaks through 2 and lays it.
This was dominance. What we witnessed was the difference between a team that's just trying to hang on and a team that's actually winning. The Fever weren't playing scared. They weren't playing conservative. They were imposing their will from the opening tip, setting a tempo that said,
here's Boston off the steal, coast to coast, heading for 2. Here comes Sims. A little hop. As she took it inside the arc. Boston able to finish. Looked like she was getting hugged, but was persistent.
We're not here to compete with you. We're here to beat you. That 10-point run wasn't lucky shots or Minnesota's cold start. It was pure, unadulterated aggression.
Williams. Turner finds the cutter. Sims using the window on a really nice pass.
Backed by skill and preparation. The victory did more than just add another win to their column. It pushed the Indiana Fever to their first winning record since 2015. Read that again. 2015, nearly a decade of mediocrity, of false starts, of what-ifs and could-have-beens, all erased by a group of players who refused to let circumstances define them. This wasn't just about surviving the injury crisis anymore. This was about proving that resilience had become their identity. But winning without your stars is one thing. The real question that had everyone holding their breath was simple. Who was going to step up? With Caitlin Clark's playmaking and Sophie Cunningham's shooting off the table, where would the offense come from? The concerns were legitimate. Clark and Cunningham weren't just players. They were the spacing, the gravity, the foundation that the entire offensive system was built around. What happened next was basketball poetry in motion. Aaliyah Boston transformed from a paint anchor into an offensive orchestrator, running plays from the post like a point guard trapped in a center's body. She didn't just dominate the boards, she tied her own rebounding record while making the Lynx defense pick their poison. Every time Boston touched the ball on the block, help had to come, and when help came, shooters got open. It was basketball chess at its finest. Then there was Odyssey Sims, coming off the bench and reminding everyone that experience doesn't just disappear overnight. 15 points of pure veteran savvy, playing with the confidence of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. After the game, Sims dropped a line that perfectly captured what this team was feeling. New season starts Sunday. That wasn't just a catchy quote. That was a declaration of independence from their past struggles. But the moment that really shifted the energy came from Ariel Powers. Back-to-back three-pointers that ripped through the net and sucked all the momentum out of Minnesota's comeback attempt. You could feel the game change right there. Powers didn't hesitate, didn't second-guess, didn't play like someone grateful just to be on the court. She played like she belonged, like she had been waiting her entire career for this spotlight. Lexi Hull was everywhere, switching on defense, contesting shots from players 6 inches taller, and still finding ways to contribute offensively without needing plays drawn up for her. Natasha Howard quietly held everything together with her efficiency, hitting shots in rhythm and providing the floor spacing that kept Boston from being doubled every possession. When the final horn sounded, 5 different players had reached double figures. This wasn't one star carrying 4 passengers. This was a complete team effort. The box score told the story, but the real story was being written in the locker room. That's where Kelsey Mitchell, coming off another brilliant performance in what's shaping up to be the best individual season in franchise history, gathered her teammates around and delivered for words that are still echoing through Indiana basketball. You've seen our growth. Those words hit different because they weren't about individual achievement. They weren't about Mitchell's historic season, even though she's the first player in Fever history to average over 20 points per game. They weren't about her rewriting the franchise record books after nearly a decade of offensive drought. They were about something bigger, the collective transformation of a group that was supposed to struggle into a unit that was ready to compete with anyone. Mitchell's journey to this moment wasn't smooth or guaranteed. With increased defensive attention and teams throwing everything they had at her, she could have crumbled under the pressure. Instead, she evolved. She learned when to be aggressive and when to trust her teammates. She mastered the balance between taking over games and making sure everyone stayed involved. That maturity, that basketball IQ, that leadership, it's what enabled role players like Sims, Powers, and Hull to step into big moments with confidence. The organization has taken notice too. The Fever aren't just letting Mitchell's numbers speak for themselves. They're actively pushing an MVP campaign, creating graphics and highlights that showcase her impact beyond the stat sheet. She's not just having a great season. She's established herself as the face of the franchise, the player other teams game plan around, the one carrying Indiana into playoff contention. But back to those 4 words in the locker room. You've seen our growth. Mitchell wasn't talking about individual development. She was talking about a group that had been written off, that had faced doubt and adversity and injury after injury, and somehow found a way to turn all of that chaos into proof that they were building something special. Those words crystallized what this entire season has meant for Indiana. The transformation from underdogs hoping to survive to contenders ready to make noise. This team is positioned for success years ahead of schedule. Their first winning record since 2015 isn't an ending. It's a preview. The Fever are treating this playoff push not as the culmination of their rebuild, but as the opening chapter of something much bigger. Coach White's philosophy of standard over scoreboard has shifted the entire organizational culture. They're not just playing to win individual games anymore. They're building the habits and mentality that championship teams possess. Every injury, every lineup shuffle, every moment when their backs were against the wall, it's all been preparing them for what's coming next. The players who are gaining playoff experience right now will be battle-tested veterans when Caitlin Clark returns. The chemistry they're building through adversity will be the foundation when they're healthy and complete. The belief they're developing in each other will be unshakable. What we're witnessing isn't just a feel-good story about overcoming injuries. This is the birth of a championship window that opened years ahead of schedule. The 2025 season was supposed to be about growing pains and learning experiences. Instead, it's become proof of what happens when a team truly trusts each other and refuses to accept limitations. The Minnesota victory wasn't just another win in the standings. It was validation that the Indiana Fever have evolved from a team hoping to make the playoffs into a team that could genuinely compete for a championship. Without their biggest star, without their veteran leadership, without half their rotation, they still found a way to dominate a quality opponent and make a statement that echoed throughout the league. Now comes the real test. The playoffs are here, and every game matters more than the last. This group has faced doubt, overcome injuries, and proven they belong. Kelsey Mitchell's 4 words, "You've seen our growth," weren't just a reflection on how far they've come. They were a promise of what's still to come. The Indiana Fever aren't just surviving anymore. They're thriving, and they're not done yet.